I will say the U.S. history.
皆さん、どうも映画監督系英語講師のひろきです。今回はですね、イケメンハリウッド俳優のデリックさんに今回ちょっと来ていただいてもらってます。
My name is Derek Dover. I am an actor from Hollywood. Currently residing here in the beautiful Tokyo.
で、デリックさん日本でも活動されてますので、現在日本にいるんですけれども、日本の映画とか大好きだし詳しいんですよ。で、どうしてそうなっていったのか、どういったキャリアでどういったお仕事をされていてですね、そういったところも話していきたいと思っていますので、ぜひ最後までご覧ください。ちなみに All English、right? すべて英語で話しますので、そちらもですね、聞き取れるかどうかっていうのをぜひ最後までチェックしてみてください。それでは Let's move on.So could you please introduce yourself a little bit?
I have been in the film industry now for about 6 years. Before that, I was in professional mixed martial arts. And before that, I was not doing much of anything in Georgia.
So you're a student?
Yes, I was a student before that.
Right? So technically speaking, everyone, when we are a student, we don't do anything. Just boring life.
Well, I held 2 jobs at the same time while I was a student, so I didn't do nothing. At the university in Georgia, I was managing a GameStop and a movie stop.
Wow.
Which I don't think we have movie stop on the west side of the U.S., but it's similar. I think you know what GameStop is. A video game store.
Yes. We have in Japan. I mean, nowadays, those shops are actually kind of extinct. But still, that's our childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Right?When I was living in Hollywood, so I think I met your wife first.
I think so.
Yeah. Is that okay to talk about a
little
bit?
Of course,
okay,
of course.
So his wife is mixed Japanese and American?
Yes.
Then she introduces him to me like, oh, my husband is an actor. Then really, because I am and I was a director. Always I'm interested in to make a network with filmmakers, including actors.
And then after she introduced us, I stole her friend away.
So,
he is now my friend.
So she is very jealous on the bromance, right? What's your job? What are you doing in Japan and in the US?
Currently in the film industry, I am, I guess, most known for acting. For me to explore the Japanese film industry and to get more involved. And besides my acting, currently I'm working on 8 different scripts.
8 different scripts. The feature film script has about 100 pages.
Right.
It's kind of book. Actually, it's a book for a film. So you're writing 8.
Right, and it's not just that. Well, I have a very scattered brain. It's hard for me to focus on one idea because my brain will snap between multiple ideas all the time. So I had kind of finished 2 different screenplays or scripts, and then I had moved on to 3 others, and then one I had to put a hold on because it's too big. And so it's just, I'm bouncing around with all these ideas.
I really love that idea because when you are stuck in one story or one thing, the brain is always boiling. So we have to take a rest for one project. But when we are taking a rest, maybe we can work on the different project.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what you are doing.
Yeah, that's how my brain works. Is it horse blinders? Is that a familiar concept in Japan?
I think people can understand that there is because I think we have subtitle here.
Okay.
So I hope they can
with
understand.
horses, they have blinders on to keep them from seeing anything to the side. So when I'm working on one project, I kind of have horse blinders. I get kind of worn out or burnt out on some ideas, so I have to move on to something else so that my brain can have a rest and think about something else. The first time that I came to Japan was in college. When I attended Kansai Gaidai. Since Naomi and I have been a couple and then got married, we come back all the time to see her family and just to come travel around Japan.
What brought you here?
There were kind of 3 things that got me interested in Japan. One, I've always been a student of history. I love history and Japan in particular. I will say the US history absolutely bores me. There's nothing interesting about US history.
Why? Because
I'm not gonna say that. Not nothing interesting, but like it's just not as exciting as like Japanese history.
Because it's shorter than
because
Japanese.
we don't have as much of a history.
300 years.
Yeah, it's still a new country, a newer country.
Yeah.
And we don't have really cool stuff like samurai and things like that.
But you guys have cowboy.
Yeah, I was never really interested in the cowboy.
The reason why I said cowboy because most of the time, when Hollywood remake Japanese samurai movie, your characters are cowboy. Seven Samurai.
Like Magnificent Seven, right? Yeah, I mean there are a lot of familiar themes between like samurai and westerns, and so you do see a lot of crossover, especially during like the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. It's just cowboys were never as cool as samurai.
Well, I appreciate that. I take that, but yeah.
So films was one thing. And then, of course, you know, being an 80s, 90s kid, I was always influenced by animation. So when I was introduced to Japanese animation, or as we all call it, anime, I was really struck with the mature themes that were presented in it. It wasn't just a child's cartoon, which, hey, I love children's cartoons, but like you could present like more interesting ideas and themes and conversations.
More emotional, like a deeper part of emotion. Right?
So films and animation were always big, and then history. So those are the three things that I kind of fell in love with before I even understood Japanese culture.
I'm just curious about what kind of anime, Japanese animation, did you watch in Georgia?
The first Japanese animated films I was introduced to were things like Akira or Ghibli films. So it was kind of those quintessential classic Japanese anime films. As far as TV shows, I actually grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon.
Our generation, right?
I, of course, always wanted to be Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon.
He's the one of the most handsome character in that series, so every man, every boy want to be that character.
Yeah, so cool and suave. Come on. I mean, how can you not want to be him?
What Japanese movie influenced you?
When I was younger, Kurosawa Akira was a huge influence because as a child, it was just cool. Awesome watching the samurai fights and the swords and the wardrobe. So that was fascinating to me as a kid. As an adult, my taste started to, of course, I still love Kurosawa, but I started to explore other things like Ozu Yasujiro. They're very opposite. I think one thing that I've heard a lot of people say is that Kurosawa movies have a masculine feel and Ozu films have a feminine feel. Not negative either way.
But unfortunately, we don't know. The Japanese people, especially younger generation, younger and younger we are, less and less knowledge about those like classic masterpiece old filmmakers.
I was actually working on set a few weeks ago.
In Japan, right?
In Japan, I won't say who, but a very big, one of the biggest Japanese production companies. And I was reading a book on Ozu Yasujiro, and one of the production assistants was like, "Oh, that's an interesting book. Who is that?" I was like, "Ozu Yasujiro." And she was like, "Oh, is that, what is that? Is that a historian?" I was like, "Of sorts."
Kinda part of history, but so you think how old she or he was?
Probably about 30. So you're right, there are a lot of young people today, maybe in Japan, aren't familiar with the older stuff.
So let's talk about difference between Japanese movies and Hollywood movies as an actor and as a director. So we have two different perspectives.
As far as production goes, one of the interesting things is that in the US film industry is heavily unionized. So we have unions that they don't just help or guide people in the film industry, whether you're an actor or a director or producer. They will legally protect you and they will help create rules within the industry that all productions and all filmmaking have to go by.
One side, that's very good because you are protected. But on the other side, sometimes I think it's too much that you are bound by those regulations.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe sometimes you are destroyed by rules which supposed to protect you.
It's a double-edged sword. I know there are some groups in Japan, they have a writers union or an actors union, but they don't act in the same way that they do in the US.
It's very different.
So there's a lot more regulations for European or US productions that Japan may not necessarily go by. which is why you have a lot of people in Japan on productions that will work, a crazy amount of hours. You can film as long as you want, but you can film as long as the director wants.
I mean, when I was in the US, I didn't sleep enough. And my roommates, most of them are like American, Indian, Chinese, Russian. They told me like, when do you sleep?
I don't think you slept. I genuinely don't think you slept. I could message you any time of the day and you would be awake. Oh, sorry, Derek, I'm working right now.
皆さん、いかがでしたでしょうか。イケメンハリウッド俳優、デリックさんに、来ていただきましたけれども、もしですねこの動画が面白かったな、役に立ったなと思ったらですね、高評価ボタンと、チャンネル登録の方もぜひよろしくお願いいたします。Do you have anything to tell the Japanese audience?
I'm just happy to be here and I hope to see you all again very soon.
Great. それでは What should we say? See you next time? Yeah, because we will have the different videos.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your watching and see you next time.